All right, so I'm going to be doing the first problem of the quiz. For this problem, the story tells us Charlotte reads for 30 minutes each day. So no matter the amount of days, for each one of those days, she reads for 30 minutes. So 30 minutes for each day that she reads. Let T represent the total number of minutes she reads, and D represent the number of days. So 30 minutes. T represents the total number of minutes she reads in total. D represents the number of days that she reads. So those are the important pieces of information. She reads for 30 minutes each day, and we don't know how many days. We're going to work that out. And they want us to use T to represent the total amount of minutes she reads, and D represent the number of days that she reads. So we have the table here, and I believe it's already set up for you, right? You have D on this side and T on the other. You have your dependent variable that you have to figure out and your independent variable, and also an equation that you have to write. All right, so using those variables, like I said, the first thing that I do is figure out how to write my equation, and this always helps me find the dependent and independent variable. So we know that each day she reads for 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes each day. We don't know how many days she has read. She may read one day, she may read 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. It's a number. The number they want us to use to represent the days is D. So 30 minutes times D, because it's 30 times the amount of days she reads. If she reads 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, how many the amount of days you're gonna have to multiply times 30, because it's 30 minutes for each one of those days. So 30D, 30 minutes for each day, will give you the total number of minutes that she reads. Remember, they want us to use T for the total number of minutes. So 30 minutes times the amount of days she reads will give you the total number of minutes. 30D equals T. 30 times D equals T. So now seeing this equation, this can help me find my dependent variable and my independent variable. Dependent variable, this variable or this letter depends on something. So looking at this, I'm thinking D. She can read 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It can be any number. That doesn't depend on anything. However, T, our answer, the total amount of minutes, depends on how many days she reads. So T is my dependent variable because it depends on how much days Charlotte reads. T, dependent variable. So T is my dependent because it depends on the equation. Depends on how many days Charlotte reads. So dependent variable T, and T represents the total number of minutes. So for here, you always want to write like a little sentence of what the variable is representing and the letter. So dependent variable T, which is the total number of minutes she reads. She reads, period. And an independent variable can be any number. It's independent. D. Because it can be 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. It doesn't matter. It's independent. It's any number. It doesn't depend on anything. It's independent. So independent variable is D. And D represents the number of days. So the independent variable is the number of days she reads. And in case you haven't caught on the dependent variable being your answer, you kind of start seeing the pattern where your dependent variable it's your answer. The answer of any equation would be your dependent variable because it depends on the equation, depends on the things you're multiplying, it depends on what you're adding, depends on what you're subtracting. This answer always depends on the equation. So this will always be your dependent variable. That is your key to remember, that dependent depends on the equation you solve. All right, so here they gave you numbers. I told you before, when you have a table and it's blank, always pick the first 5 numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's easy to solve them. I'm looking up the quiz really quick. Okay, yeah, so that's exactly what they did. They want you to figure out how many minutes she read for her whole week. So they put 7 days. So you have your 7 days. So another way to see this is if D equals 1, what does T equal? Right? If she reads for only 1 day, how many total minutes did she read for? Right? T equals 30D. T depends on what 30 times D equals. So if D equals 1, what does T equal? So basically, you're going to plug all of these numbers into this equation, and whatever answer you get is what T equals. So if you plug in the 1, that is, I'm going to start over here because I want to use as much of this space as I can. So if D equals 1, then T equals 30 times 1. 30 times 1 is 30. So T equals 30. All right. What if D equals 2? If D equals 2, what does T equal? Let's plug it in. 30 times 2 equals T. 30 times 2 is 60. So T equals 60 when D equals 2. All right, what about 3? If D equals 3, what does T equal? Plug it in. 30 times 3 equals T. 30 times 3 is 90. So T equals 90 when D equals 3. All right, and if you haven't noticed, there's also a pattern here. She reads 30 minutes each day. So every day after a week that goes by, she's going to read for 30 minutes more, right? So right here, you can see 30, 60, 90. I predict that this would be 120 because it's growing by 30. She's reading 30 minutes every day. So let's plug it in. 30 times 4 equals T. 30 times 4 equals 120. Correct. 120. And that's because that is the rate, right? For 1 day is 30 minutes. That is the rate. 30 minutes per day. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I feel like this is pretty much explained. You can get 5, 6, and 7 done. And the next question.